The future is bright at Monsters Incorporated. We power your car, we warm your home, we light your city.
We interrupt our program to bring you this important message.
So, Monsters Inc. This movie is full of secrets, strange, unexplained details that have been attracting theorists for literally decades now. I thought I'd take a swing at it, try to make one theory that explains all the mysteries. And I think I did. I found a really interesting new way to look at these movies, and it changes the whole narrative of the Pixar universe. So I thought I'd try to share some of it with you guys. In this first video, I'll spend about the first half just getting everyone caught up on all the lore and the questions, and then I'll give some of my ideas for what's really going on here. Part 2 will be absolutely insane, and I'm gonna go into how all of this came to be in the first place. And then part 3 is where I would tie everything into the rest of Pixar, which I'll be doing some of that in part 1 and 2 as well, and we'll go from there. But let's start at the beginning. First, we need to look into the Monsters Inc. lore, because it's really not what you'd expect. It's inverted. Why do monsters scare humans? See, the whole movie misdirects us. You think it's so they can get power, but that's not true. They trick you into thinking monsters just scare because it's their job. They don't have any bad intentions.
I'm not gonna scare you. I'm off duty.
But the truth is, monsters scare specifically to make humans suffer. Making power from it was a later addition to their tradition. This is objectively canon. Proof of this is everywhere, but it's said most explicitly in the orientation video.
Since the beginning of time, monsters have scared children, but it wasn't always as easy as it is today. Prehistoric methods were difficult, hazardous, and not always effective. Then, about a century ago, Henry J. Waternoose I developed the Monsters Incorporated patented ROZ indoor scare technique.
This is also reinforced in Monsters at Work, where we hear the real reason they scare.
It all started long ago, with a monster, a scream, and a dream. A dream to make human children's lives a living nightmare. Jack the Fang Worthington, one of the pioneers of Scream Energy, founded Fearco.
The monsters want to make human lives a living nightmare, and they always have. Scream Energy was just a way they figured out how to monetize it, but the goal was to hurt humans. But why? Well, there's another infamous bonus feature called the History of the Monster World. This short is wrong in every sense of the word. It tries to explain the beginning of all this, but it doesn't line up with the movie at all. Every theory ever made hinges on how you decide to connect this to the movie. You'll just have to see it for yourself.
Once there was a land with two primitive tribes, the Mans and the Mons. The Mons tried to make friends with the Mans, but the Mans thought the Mons were small, hairy, had bad breath, and smelled bad. So they frightened them away and drove them out to sea. The Mons swam and swam, until eventually they came upon an enchanted island. They ate the strange fruits and veggies on the island and became hairier, their teeth became worse, and they reeked. What if we gave the Mans a taste of their own medicine? Just sneak back over to their place and scare the heck out of them. So they did. They found their revenge so sweet that they decided to make it their mission in life, and it continues to this day.
So a couple questions. Why do monsters and humans live in the same world? Is it the monster world, well, another world? I'd always assumed it was like another dimension or planet. The Pixar theory claims it to be a different time frame, the future, but this contradicts all of them. Every theory ever made about this is wrong. What even is the implication here? Is this just saying the monster world is Earth? The monsters just live in a different country? Some sort of hidden continent? But how could that be? Why wouldn't people have just found them by now? I mean, where even is this hidden continent? Well, I think I figured out where we can find it. See, Monsters Inc. has really consistent clocks, and we can see different time zones that they're scaring and what time of day it is in different parts of the world, so I checked all of them. And I figured out that the monster world has to be in this time zone here. When it's day in the monster world, it's day in Europe and night in America. When it's evening in the monster world, it's still dark in America, and so on. And I think this is consistent with every door that they actually go through. Since the monster world has seasons, then they're probably not too close to the equator, so my guess would be there's some sort of island around Europe about. Probably the island from the Mans and Mons. I mean, it's drawn like it's prehistoric events, and, people are from the Mediterranean area. This makes perfect sense. But going back to my question earlier, how do the people not know about this? Because, hold on, people clearly do know about monsters. I mean, they tell stories about them.
Fear. It's our tradition, but it's also human children's. Human children need us to be terrified. They tell stories about us at sleepovers and around campfires. We have a responsibility to keep kids scared.
People have always known that monsters are real, but in the modern day, how have they not found the monster world? I mean, they have satellites. They can see everything. How is this continent hidden? How have they not figured out where monsters are building these portals from? And how exactly are monsters building these portals? Actually, how do they know any of this? How do they have all this information? Look at their scare charts. Full names, location, ages. How do they get all this legal information from the humans? Who's giving it to them? Oh. There's only one way the monsters could have all this. The human governments are giving this information to the monsters. I mean, look at all this extensive legal information the monsters have. The humans had to provide this to them. There's no way the monsters sneak into every child's room on Earth, obtain all this information completely undetected. It has to be the human governments. They're the only ones with these kinds of records. And they have to know about the monster world. They know about the whole thing. And we know they've been letting it happen. But for any of this to still be working, they have to be helping, but this doesn't make any sense. Why would humans do this? Didn't I just make a whole point about this is some ancient war? Why would they suddenly team up? Something is just not clicking yet. Let's see. Well, the monsters did figure out how to create reliable, unlimited, renewable, clean energy. I mean, what would greedy human governments want more than unlimited power for the entire world? Maybe they're making a trade, information for power. This human government would also be the ones that built the other side of their portals, meaning this evil government is in control of the housing industry as well. The government would have to be in control of a lot of both worlds for this to work. So what? The human governments sold each other's information to Monstropolis to get unlimited power? It makes sense, it feels like kind of a real world issue, but it still feels like this isn't the whole picture. I still have that feeling that something was wrong. We see that monsters and humans are in an ancient war, but in the modern day, they all just made up and work together to exploit children. This does seem to be exactly what's happening, but how did we get here? No, there's a missing piece. What led to this government ruling over both worlds? I keep asking questions. Didn't I promise a few answers at least? Oh yes, why do monsters believe that humans are toxic? Well, this government over both worlds doesn't want them interacting, doesn't want anyone learning too much. They tell monsters that humans are radioactive, which is based in absolutely no fact whatsoever. This can't just be an honest mistake, a little rumor that spread. It's a lie that scientists and governments and colleges are all in on. This is why Boo's door was shredded. No one is allowed to know both worlds.
I can't do that. She's seen too much. You both have. It doesn't have to be this way. I have no choice.
Bring me a door shredder.
What? You mean I can't see her again?
That's the way it has to be.
Speaking of Boo, why didn't her parents look for her? She went missing for an entire day, and it seems like no one noticed. Well, this can also be explained by a government that oversees both worlds. Once Boo's parents noticed that she was missing, they simply called the authorities, the ones who run Monsters Inc., who immediately sent in the Child Detection Agency. They got to the restaurant so fast, like they were waiting for some sign for where Boo was. It makes sense why they hang out right outside the factory, but why are they at this restaurant? Unless they already had a tip that a child was somewhere and they were on high alert. You know, I think the higher-ups at the CDA might be the closest we see of this government. The CDA goes to great lengths to convince the monsters that humans are toxic, even though they aren't. They also seem to be keeping an eye on the monsters, making sure they don't step out of line. They seem to be almost in direct contact with humans, with Boo's parents seemingly alerting them. This is probably how ROZ has been investigating water news for over 2 years now. He's been kidnapping and experimenting on children, and the humans obviously noticed their kids going missing and alerted her. And she got a job undercover as the receptionist to investigate, to spy on the company, even though she's always been a much higher ranking individual. Which would mean... Oh, that's it. There's only one way this can work. How we get from here to here. It's remarkably simple. Monsters aren't working with this government. They are this government. This is how it happened. This is the only way it could have happened. The war didn't just stop and they teamed up. No, the monsters won. That's what we see. Look, they conquered humans. They won the war, and now they rule over them. That's the only way they could feasibly get away with terrorizing people in their own homes for centuries. The only way this operation could be running so smoothly is if some ancient syndicate of monsters has been overseeing humanity the whole time. They have the entirety of Earth on their wall, like a map of the land they've conquered. Wait, pause. Isn't this, like, exactly the premise of any Illuminati theory? This would be a fitting name to start referring to this monster government as, since the Illuminati is occasionally, but commonly theorized to be a group of shape-shifting reptilian aliens secretly ruling the world. This depiction is a common trope used in all sorts of media. They even have similar logos with the all-seeing eye. Always watching. Wait, they're spelling it out! They have eyes everywhere! You know, this idea might not be too far off, since Pixar already made a movie about shape-shifting reptilian human-monster hybrids who live in the waters of Europe, the exact place I guessed the Mons to be from. If these guys are descended from a monster species, that will mean the cursed island that the Mons found could be Sicily. We're gonna pinpoint this one clue at a time. At this point, I'm just gonna say it's possible that the Illuminati started to rise in power during the Roman Empire. I mean, they're connected to Italy, who tried to rule the world. And as America becomes a global superpower, they spend most of their attention there. Hence their American culture, which is very different from the area around them. Except for one monster, who for some reason has an Italian accent, and is selling, I kid you not, the fruit from the Mans and Mons. But whoa, okay, I need to slow down. This is about to become way too elaborate to go into in one part. That's why this is gonna be a probably 3-part series, maybe more, maybe less. I'm not sure, but I know in part 2 is where I'm gonna say all the insane stuff. See, that's what I'm gonna figure out, the origin of the universe. So stay tuned.